public don't seem to recognise quite how many children suffer from at least some degree of abuse. My interest is in child protection and improving the social work reasoning around risk management so that we are better able to identify which families the child needs to be taken away from and where we can actually work with the family to make them capable of giving a good home to the child. I did a study of the set of child abuse inquiry reports published between 1973 and 1994, and I was looking at them from the point of view of what were the errors in human reasoning that were made by the professionals. And what I found was a very, very consistent pattern over the years. So what came across to me very strongly was this continual repetition of the same kind of mistakes happening time and time again. And each time the reports come out with recommendations about how to avoid those mistakes. And you have this whole history of really well-intentioned, intelligent people producing recommendations and yet the same mistakes happening. So we obviously weren't looking at the problems in the right way. Well, because I was puzzled by this, I was reading widely, and I came across the finding that in the world of aviation and in engineering there had been a similar concern, that they'd been having public inquiries that came to very much the same kind of conclusions as in child protection. It may not be obvious to people that there is a similarity between flying a plane and protecting the child, but there is in fact. It's the same issues around human beings collecting data, analysing it and coming to the right judgment. And what they realised was that they can't eradicate the human being, and therefore what you need to do is to harness the human being better, to make them have the kind of work environment where they can operate better. There's a very nice quote in the American Medical Guide to doing a health systems review, which is that the aim is to make it easier for people to do the right thing and harder for them to do the wrong thing. In aviation, they had first and foremost thought that they were dealing with an engineering problem, and then they realised that they're actually dealing with a socio-technical problem. It's human beings plus machinery, and that what you need to do is to study the interaction of them. And that's exactly the scenario you have in reality in child protection, because we have our own form of technology. We have computer databases, we have assessment frameworks, we have policy documents. And if you don't look at how they're designed and whether they help people have the right information at the right time, then you make it more or less difficult for them to make the right judgment. Well, human error is where you should begin to ask questions rather than where you should stop. Because on the whole, pilots do not choose to crash and kill themselves, and in general social workers go to work wanting to do a good job. Paediatricians want to make children better, not make them worse. And so when they make mistakes, you shouldn't just put it down to stupidity or laziness or callousness. The government produced a new detailed software program for social workers called the Integrated Children's System, which has proven to be very counterproductive. And the problems with it are that it does not collect the data and present it to social workers in a way that makes it easy for them to reason about families and about children's safety. So that's a clear example of how the design of the software makes it hard for them to pull information together and get a narrative about what's happening to a child. They end up with 40 pages of boxes of data rather than a one-page story of what's happening to a child. And it makes it harder for human beings then to know what sense to make of it. It's not a no-blame approach, because it's not saying that frontline workers are just puppets on the end of strings, but their choice of action is very much shaped by the organisation around them and what's available. So within the systems inquiry, we're not attempting to do everything. We are just attempting to understand why things went the way they did, and from that to devise ideas of how they could be better managed. When you get something like the case of Victoria Climbié or baby Peter, what you see in the media is people are amazed that this could happen. And when you read the serious case review at the moment, you're still amazed. In fact, Lord Laming quite explicitly said at the end of the Victoria Climbié case, "I am still puzzled that everybody operated at such a low level." And at least with a systems review, you do understand why. You may not forgive them for it, but you do understand what was going on, that they, in their heads, they were doing something rational.